Hey doing guys, welcome back. I'm going to do a quick breakdown on Bitcoin, Binance, the BUSD side of things in terms of PAXOS stopping the minting of BUSD and obviously the SEC attacking pretty much everybody in the cryptocurrency space. I'm probably going to address that in a separate video because obviously there's a lot of dynamics going on there and some things, they change very, very quickly. So let's focus on Bitcoin and what we can expect based on what we're seeing, with, at least with the way that price is moving around. We'll go over to Binance as well and see what the effects of the recent news, has had on Binance and whether or not that is going to continue to pull the market lower or whether or not Binance will shrug that off and continue moving forward. So with Bitcoin, we are stabilizing around here, obviously, with the recent CPI releases and retail releases and, some of the numbers that are hitting the market. Obviously, we had a bit of a downturn. And then obviously where I've put number one here, this level now becomes a very important level. If price gets through this, then it will start to eat into number two. And I'm finding this is probably going to be easier going forward in terms of, visualizing what we're seeing on the chart. So if we get through number one, comes in around about 20,900 to 20,000. We are likely, if we do not respond at this level like we have already, okay, so that's the key takeaway. We've already responded at number one. If we finally get through it now at this point without going higher, then we're likely to come into number two and we'll probably start seeing numbers like 19,000 and 18,000 again on Bitcoin. Now, if we continue and it uses this area, to kind of impulse to the upside and go deeper into these areas up here, then we are likely to see that 25,000 and potentially a little bit higher. Now, over here at number three, there are some traders, that were going long here. People believe that this was the bottom potentially. It's pretty decent, 30,000 and so on. So obviously there's going to be a lot of investors that would have bought at 30,000 between sort of 29,000 and around about 32,000. So if we do finally arrive at this level, number three, 30,000 and up, then we are likely to see some selling, hit the market and probably push us back down to around about 26 to 25. Now, if that happens, it's at that point where we will have to study price and get a bit more of a general feel as to what we're going to see going forward. So now let's move over to Binance. It is a bit messier. Obviously, we can see this big wick. We can see this drop. You can see this secondary drop. Nice impulse, big move up, all the way into the 340s. This was all expected. Obviously, we went through all of this, in terms of the narrative. And then since then, we've had a little bit of a drop, all the way back down to around about 280. I believe it was 284, 283. This was off the back of the news that PAXOS had stopped minting BUSD and they will no longer be doing that going forward. Obviously, that's going to impact, the Binance company itself and obviously the exchange. It's an integral part, to Binance. So we need to see how this kind of filters through and what the SEC has in store. They've issued a Wells notice to PAXOS, so PAXOS now have to go back and they have to explain why they believe BUSD isn't an unregistered security, which is absolutely absurd. But anyway, and if they can't do that, then the SEC will ultimately take them to court, and then obviously a battle will ensue. If PAXOS isn't in a position to be able to do that, they will probably settle and pay a big fine, like Kraken did, of 30 million, I believe Kraken paid, in terms of their staking side of things, but that's a completely different story. We can see this kind of full-pronged attack now in terms of what the SEC is doing. And I think, as we push closer to some semblance of central bank digital currencies, this is probably going to get a little bit more aggressive, and we are going to start to see some exchanges paying huge fines, in some, sort of court cases, similar to the Ripple case, with the SEC and them. So we're going to start to see a lot more of this now. And I believe there are going to be some companies that are going to be, moving out of the States, and basically going, outside of the United States in terms of jurisdiction, and putting, their cryptocurrency companies outside of the United States. So they're not being affected by, regulatory compliance through the SEC. So in terms of Binance, you can see that this response here, pretty much the same as Bitcoin. If we get below 280, and we'll go ahead, I should have done this before, my apologies. We'll go ahead and we'll just put a little note here. We'll just put number one. So this area right here, number one, if we get below this, it is likely that we will push a little bit lower, maybe to 270 to 260. But this leg down, this is a pretty sharp move. This is more, I'm not going to say it's panic driven, but this is more, this is driven by people reacting to something that they've just heard. And, it's not a market driven thing. It's not momentum to the downside. This is basically just, FUD hits the market, bang, price starts to run to the downside. And you can see the psychology in this. Price drops, a little bit of a rally as people think, yeah, you know what, BUSD, I've done a little bit of research now, it's still backed, so on and so on. So maybe you get a little bit of a rally, then something else happens, maybe a slight depegging of BUSD, which is what happened a few times on the 15-minute chart on the day of the announcement. Maybe people start to panic, they start to pull their BUSD, swap it back for dollars, and some people obviously switching that money over to Binance or BNB, and some of that money has obviously gone off chain maybe. So there's a lot of variables and a lot of things to take into consideration. But in terms of what to expect going forward, if this move right here, so if we just make a reference to this level here, if this high or this swing high right here isn't taken or traded through at 320, and we start to push, then it's very unlikely, that we're not going to see number one traded through, and a potential push to around about 270 to 260. Something to note on Binance going forward, at any moment in time, news can hit the market on Binance, and we could see some pretty aggressive swings without it affecting Bitcoin whatsoever. So, all eyes on all eyes on Binance at the moment, and definitely something we need to be paying attention to. I will do a separate video in terms of the BUSD side of things and what the SEC has got in store for, for all of us, or at least from my opinion and what I think. And with that said, I hope everyone's having a fantastic day or evening, and I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. All the best. Take care. Ciao for now.